what happened to Project Veritas?
They're gone. They're finally gone from Twitter.
Oh dear.
The Silicon Valley's had enough of being embarrassed. But the first thing I wanted to go over was actually some corrections of a story we did yesterday on Disney with the cancel culture stuff. So this was one of the things we featured, was this image here. This guy is also on the same show as the lady who got cancelled, comparing the kids in cages in Trump's America to people in concentration camps in the Holocaust.
Yes.
It turns out this is not just false because it's an obvious false comparison. It's also false because the image is not from America. It is from Palestine. It is kids waiting to get food at a soup kitchen, as it's labelled, with a bunch of kids in the cages, presumably because kids are annoying, so shove them in the cage.
I mean,
and there's not just
every parent's dream, to be honest.
I mean, you literally have cages and doors in home cells, or what are they called? The gates?
Yeah.
Cage you put down. There's not just the one image, there are a couple more images. So the next couple of links are just different images of this. So it's definitely real. It's not just some guy on the internet said it. No.
Yeah.
The next one's the same thing. Just kids in the same cages.
Right. So not only was Pedro Pascal doing the thing that Gina, what's her name, Carano,
I can't remember.
had done, but he also was spreading fake news.
Wow, he was condemning Palestine. So, okay. So the next thing here was the fact that a Disney producer had also done far worse. So this is a guy who is a producer for Disney.
Yep.
This was at the time of the Covington Kids Schoolboy saga, and he wanted to put the MAGA kids into the wood chipper.
Yep. For anyone who's not familiar, this was when a Native American activist confronted some Catholic schoolboys, and the video footage made it look like the Catholic schoolboys, because of the angle it was shot and the sort of particular time period that was cut, made it look like they were trying to intimidate him and smirk at him or something like that. But other footage from other angles shows that, in fact, it was the boys who were being impressed upon by the activists, and they were, in fact, racially abused by Hebrew Israelites.
Like Israel. So they were shouting things like cracker and whatnot.
Yeah.
But so his response was kill them. Apparently he apologized for this, therefore this is all okay.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Like the reaction from, I guess, the cabal was basically this: the MAGA kids are evil and they need to go into the wood chipper. And it's like, wow, that's pretty strong.
So this is fine. But
no problem here, Disney.
Cancel culture is like the early stages of the Holocaust is not fine. The next thing is something also Disney likes is apparently nonces. So this is a guy who was convicted of paedophilia, and then he was rehired by Disney to work on a show with underage kids.
What?
So these are the sort of things you can get away with if Disney is interested, but being pro-MAGA, not okay. So that's a step too far.
Brian Peck served 16 months in prison after admitting 2 counts of abusing a Nickelodeon child actor. And he was in 2 X-Men movies, and since then he's been a dialogue coach and worked on a Disney series and played a teacher and claims to be a friend of Charlie Sheen. Okay.
So he was still working for Disney.
Right.
So noncery's fine. Threatening to kill kids, or at least hoping that kids are murdered, that's fine. Condemning Palestine, that's fine. But saying
the Holocaust was bad, not fine.
Yeah. That's Disney, but there's the updates there.
But then, I mean, Walt Disney did have some strong views on these things himself, didn't he? So maybe we shouldn't be too surprised.
Anyway, into Project Veritas. So Project Veritas has been removed from Twitter completely. Their official account is completely gone. If you go on it, it just says suspended. And a lot of people were wondering why. It turns out they'd released some new tapes, and Project Veritas, people who don't know, like to do undercover stings of different organizations that don't like their real views being aired, most notably Silicon Valley. So Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. They have insiders send them tapes of what's being actually discussed, and it shows that what everyone suspects Silicon Valley to be is true. And this is one of the tapes that they showed that subsequently got them deleted. So this is Nick Clegg, so the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, and now works for Facebook in the policy side of the building.
The mouth of Facebook, yes.
Yeah, him and the vice president of Facebook in a Zoom call with Mark Zuckerberg. So let's just play the clip.
But there has been quite a lot of disquiet expressed by many leaders around the world, from the president of Mexico to Alexander Navalny in Russia, and Chancellor Angela Merkel, and others saying, well, this shows that private companies have got too much power and they should be only making these decisions in a way that is framed by democratically agreed rules. We agree with that. Mark had been very clear about that ideally we wouldn't be taking these decisions on our own. We would be taking these decisions in line with and in conformity with democratically agreed rules and principles. And At the moment, those democratically agreed rules don't exist. We still have to take decisions in real time.
We have a system that is able to freeze commenting on threads in cases where our systems are detecting that there may be a thread that has hate speech or violence sort of in the comments. These are all things we've built over the past 3-4 years as part of our investments into the integrity space or efforts to protect elections.
So,
how do you have violence in a comment?
Well, you have a hate speech or violence, and as we know, through other Project Veritas leaks, the people who do that moderation interpret those things not in a sane way, but in an insane way.
Yeah, but I mean, literally by the definition of the terms, I don't think a comment on the internet can constitute violence. Ever.
Not to anyone sane.
Yeah, okay.
But the content moderators, as we've had from the leaks, they would describe things as supporting MAGA as terrorism. So,
right, okay, yeah, fair point.
So anything that they dislike will be automatically frozen, according to the Vice President. And Nick Clegg there openly saying that actually we have too much power, and the way we exercise our power is undemocratic, and we're even uncomfortable.
I mean, we agree, Nick.
Yeah,
agreement.
I'm in agreement, but one of the things you noticed there, he went to say that ideally we would use democratically elect, and then he cuts it and goes, no, democratically implemented.
Agreed.
Yeah, democratically agreed instead. Because if there was to be input from the user base, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Or they might be very First Amendment inclined, mightn't they?
Yeah, they might be far right.
Nick Clegg puts out a thing. What would you like to do? And just one response is N.
Anyway, so Project Veritas put that clip out. They also put another one, which we can't play because this is what got them deleted officially, but it doesn't seem to be true. So this is a freeze frame of that second video. So what they like to do is they like to go to the person who they've caught saying things that they wouldn't say publicly and say, okay, now you're in public, would you stand by this comment? And they never do. No one ever does.
Yeah.
So they went to the Vice President's house here and asked him, are you able to freeze comments? Do you stand by this, what you said, of hate speech? He says nothing and runs in his house.
So this is a practice that is otherwise called doorstopping, and this is something that the media does all the time.
Completely normal.
Completely normal. I mean, like, the most recent one that comes to mind was Jeremy Corbyn getting doorstopped by the press coming out of his house after he'd just lost the election. It's like, morning, Jeremy, and then he's slamming the car door. It was very, very amusing.
Or Dominic Cummings.
The
last few days, he can't move anywhere else in the pandemic, so...
They know exactly where he is, and yet they take the footage from his doorstep. And James O'Keefe published this, I published like a 2-minute clip of just a compilation of American journalists doing exactly the same thing. It's a completely normal practice in journalism, and Twitter took him down for, what was it, revealing private information?
So it would be violating their doxing guidelines. So if we can do the next tweet, that's actually exactly what you were describing, which is he putting him... oh, wait, never mind, sorry. That's the next one after that.
Right, okay. But
so this is them being deleted, and then the next one should be James O'Keefe saying... whatever, I've got it in the wrong order. My bad. So he did put out a clip in which he had CNN door stopping someone, saying that they had Russian bots in their server. And the argument was in the clip with Project Veritas, you could see the door number of the vice president of Facebook. That was the defense from leftists I saw. Right. But when you actually went to like the CNN clip or whatever, you had the door number as well. Yeah. So there is no argument here. It's just...
One rule for one rule for another.
It's not about that. You were embarrassed. So they deleted his the Project Veritas account was suspended, and because he has a personal account and a company one, his account was also suspended because they tweeted the same thing.
Right.
And in this video, so we're not going to play this video, but he shows what happens. So a bunch of journalists started contacting Twitter to say, hey, what's going on? Why'd you get rid of Project Veritas? And Twitter essed the bed and decided, no, okay, we're not just going to temporarily suspend him. Project Veritas is suspended permanently. Slapped a permanent suspension on them.
And as we found out from Twitter yesterday, once your account's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
They never give you it back.
Never coming back. Except that they messed up. So you would expect them to permanently suspend James O'Keefe and Project Veritas, because he runs Project Veritas. No. They panicked, banned Project Veritas, and went, job done, everything is good. So when he went back to then...
Because he got a 12-hour suspension, right?
Yeah, so he went back to the phone and he shows on this video, here's Project Veritas, okay, I will cancel my appeal so I can just delete the tweet and get my account back. Oh, it's permanently suspended, that's gone now. And then he does the same thing on his account, and all of a sudden he can get back on. So it's like, right, so this was a specific thing you put on Project Veritas after journalists contacted you.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with what I did. It has everything to do with what the media did.
Yeah.
So it's a very good example of how these things are not consistent. You know,
But again, it always goes one way. It always goes one way. It's only ever right-wingers, quote unquote, who get deplatformed from Twitter. The left-wingers get their accounts back.
And then the next one here is actually, sorry, because I realized I put them in the wrong order, is this, what you were talking about. So if you scroll down a little bit there, you can see this lady trying to deny that in her group there were Russian trolls. I don't know the truth, I don't care.
Yeah,
but you can see that them showing the house, and then when she walks back in, you can see the number on her house. So are CNN going to be deleted for doxing? Is the BBC News going to be deleted for doxing when they went to Dominic Cummings? Of course not. It only ever goes one way.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put this in with the fact that a bunch of other stuff has been happening. They're not necessarily connected, but a good update.
It's in the same subject.
Yeah, so another part here is that the BBC has been banned from broadcasting in China because they've upset the Chinese government. So the way they put it, so if we put this in the language of Silicon Valley, I think that's the best way that we can demonstrate how bad Silicon Valley is. So they were engaging in manipulated media practices. Is what the Silicon Valley version would be. That they were distorting the truth and trying to mislead people.
Never.
And the way the CCP says they were distorting people was that they were bringing up the genocide, and that's haram. You can't be doing that. That's distortion.
Well,
It's
I mean,
not
of
happening.
course, you don't want people hearing about that.
And also lying about China's government's handling of the COVID outbreak. You know, the initial mess ups. That's all made up media. Therefore, they are banned from China, and China's a private country that can do what it wants. So nothing you can do about it, BBC.
Oh, BBC, the one time you actually report the truth and you get banned for it. That's rough.
But if they don't like it, they can just build their own China, can't they? But you see how I like the reason I want to do that was because you can see how ridiculous this argument is when it comes to media companies in the US. When you apply it to something like this, there is no defense of this. This is just the BBC told the truth, and the authorities in power just said, "Gone."
Oh, now you know how it feels, BBC.
Learn to live with it. Although I do have some good news. So we covered before about how the Law Commission was planning to make images of Muhammad illegal in the UK because
I don't even remember that.
our country is run by Sharia. Apparently they're going ahead with this. Nothing stopped them on that. But they have backed down on one thing. So this was reporting at the time that also buried in there was that they wanted to make hate speech within a private domicile illegal. So there was always been an exemption on speech codes that said if it's in your private house in which the public can't even hear it, why would we even make that illegal?
Whose business is it?
Exactly. Therefore, this was exempt from the hate speech laws that we had in the past. So Dankula would get in trouble because he put it on the internet.
Yeah.
But if he had done that in his own home and that's it, he couldn't get in trouble. They want to change this. They wanted to change it so even if you engaged in hate speech in your own house, you would be guilty of a crime. And the first question that brings up is, how's that going to work? How are you going to get evidence of this?
Well, I mean, they do all have an Alexa recording everything they say.
So that's one angle.
And it's not like Silicon Valley is terribly reticent to hand over private information if Facebook is anything to go by. I mean, the only people in there is Apple who seem to care about that.
But even if you weren't to use, which I suspect they're happy to use microphones hidden.
I imagine that they would,
just to prosecute people for naughty words.
Yeah.
But if you weren't to use that, you would have to do what the East German government did, which is to get everyone to tattletale on each other.
That is also an option.
So you'd have, kids handing in their parents for hate crimes.
And if we've seen anything from the Capitol riots, it's that there are people out there who are prepared to dob in their parents to the authorities.
Absolutely. So there's a few people who have been campaigning against this that I want to shout out because, good job.
Yep.
So Fair Corp, Free Speech Union, Lord Vincent, and Lord Pearson, great guy, have all made a lot of noise about this, questioning what on earth do you think you're doing. And the Law Commission has backed down, saying that we're not going to try and make saying things in your own home illegal. But the question
thank
is,
God for small mercies.
if you actually accept that hate speech is something that should be policed and all this stuff, if you accept all these premises, why do you stop yourself at private conversations? What is the limiting principle there? Like, if you're saying, if I go in public and say to 100 people a piece of hate speech calling for genocide, that should be banned or something like this. Well, if I do it with 5 of my family members, why is that different?
Yeah, it's qualitatively exactly the same. The difference is just quantitative.
Yeah.
And principally, if you believe that all hate speech is bad, then the quantity doesn't matter.
No, if I do it to just one person, if I tell my girlfriend something
If
ridiculous...
I do it alone in a room, then I should be prosecuted for it by their standards.
So that's why they ended up here. And I can't get over how there's so little opposition to this. I mean, thank God for these people who have fought back on that aspect of these reforms, but the Mohammed stuff's still in there. That's not changing. And what's interesting is their response to this, in which they accept that, yes, we were basically trying to be the Stasi, isn't very good either. Like, I don't understand how these people think. So
You're acting like the Stasi, and they're just like, yes.
they're just like, well, okay, fine, whatever.
What's wrong with being the Stasi?
So their response here, to give them their word: the criminal team is looking at alternative ways in which the law might be reformed in order to ensure these laws, which criminalised only the most serious forms of incitement, are compatible with both the right to freedom of expression and the right for one's home, privacy, and family life. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
How can you have the right to freedom of expression and also implement laws which target people for hate speech?
Yeah. I mean, you're directly infringing on my freedom of expression in certain ways that you are just outright open about. We don't want you saying this, 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 and this.
So the Free Speech Union sent an email to all its members. I'm a member of the union, so I got a quote from them talking about this. So they say, unfortunately, this is only one of the numerous changes that the Law Commission is proposing to undermine free speech. For instance, it is still recommending expansion of the number of protected characteristics.
That's what we need.
Potentially to include gender, age, subcultures such as goths and sexual fetishes, and asexual people, and urging the government to change the law so that people can be prosecuted under the Public Order Act if they are likely to stir up hatred against any of these groups.
Great. It's going to become a hate crime to patrol thoughts on the internet.
Yes. Well, some of these are the new proposals which we've been mocking for a long time. The idea of doing it along gender, age, and then subcultures got brought in. And we're like, what does that even mean?
But what prevents Nazis from being claimed as a victim group here? Again,
well, already we have belief on there, so they would actually be protected by that, and as a subculture, they would have double protections. So, the neo-Nazis of the UK can sue all they want, and they likely will win by the law. But the new one in there...
Not a great law.
The new one, sexual fetishists.
Oh, God.
Furries.
Foot fetishists, that's what that is. Big feet are trying to...
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure you could make an argument for them being a subculture, but I think furries is a better example of a subcultural group along sexual fetishes lines. They're now a protected group. They're as protected as anyone else. So if you engage in any hate speech against furries in the coming years, you're gonna go to jail in the UK.
Okay, I stand even more firmly on my position that there is no hate speech against furries or foot fetishists or many other types of disgusting groups, in fact.
But this is the Equality Act. This is where this leads. If you accept that equality is a good thing, it's obviously not. It is equal treatment that is a good thing, not equality. That doesn't really mean anything. Then you end up at this point in which you say, okay, we'll make special privileges for men versus women, or special privileges on the basis of skin color. Where's the limiting principle? And you end up at the point where, actually, I think you probably could argue that pedophiles are a subculture.
I think they would argue that.
In which case, the MAPs... they're a protected group, and if you engage in hate speech against them, you're going to go to jail.
But that's one of my favourite pastimes, is engaging in hate speech against maps.
Well, enjoy it while you can.
Well, I guess
the Law Commission get their way. In a year, that's going to be against the law.